All right. Hello, hello, everybody. I'm so super stoked. I have to tell you, welcome to No Judgment Here with Tish Ross, the podcast. You guys are about to be so blessed. I mean, every single guest that comes in is such a huge blessing to anyone that listens. But I have to tell you just a few seconds before I hit the go live button. Whether you're a believer or not, whatever you believe in, it doesn't matter. Gosh, everybody is welcome here. That's why my podcast is No Judgment Here. But I have to tell you that before I actually went live, um, there was a feeling of, I was just chatting with Pooch, that there was a feeling of the Lord's great presence. And that's so overwhelming to me. Like, I really have to make sure that I stay focused in not getting overwhelmed emotionally, if you guys know what I mean. But man, it was huge just a second ago. So the Lord is very much here. Said a little prayer with David and Samantha before we came on. Please do this for me. Please do this for me, for them. Please, if you have a platform, if you could right now go and share this podcast, I would so appreciate it. I know that they would. And I know that without us knowing what this particular podcast does for other people, we may never know, but I know that they would appreciate it as well. So if you can do that for me right quick before I bring them in, I would greatly appreciate it. They would greatly appreciate it. And the people that need to hear this would greatly appreciate it as well. So that's the kind of support that we need. And I'm going to come in super fast and say hello to as many guests as I can. Pooch, did you want to try the exclamation point judge not? Because it looks like it says Nightbot's running. And then if that works, I'm going to share with you guys what that means. So welcome everyone in, and welcome everyone that will listen to this later on the podcast, or if you're listening live on a podcast. I appreciate you being here. And so what I do while you're listening, because I'm running this live from my YouTube platform, I'm going to say hi to a few YouTube channels that have hopped in. And please know that if you hop in now, if you hop in later, I am so greatly appreciative of your support. So we have Simply Jan Homestead. She is here. And Karen Brest, you made it in. I'm so happy that you are here. Thank you for being here. Christine, Mrs. Gillum Farms is here. And again, if you're listening to this on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, please go to YouTube sometime and check out some of these great channels. Melinda Dobson is here as well. She got her some sweet tea and some tissues. You're going to need those tissues, friends. Cheryl Guess is here. Thank you, Cheryl, for being here. And let's see. I'm running down. Full Blown Country is here. Thank you, Pooch, for being here. Thank you to all my mods that are here. Cora Phelps is here. Thank you for being here as well. And I'm scrolling quickly as you guys are listening. TNT Adventures is here, and I understand that that is David's mom. I'm so glad that you're here. She says, "Hi guys, I am ready." We are ready indeed. Okay, One Day at a Time Farmstead is here. Thank you guys for being here. And if you would just at the bottom type, let me know that you shared. Also, if you could give this podcast a thumbs up, it really helps with the algorithm. And I just need as many people as they can to hear what David and Samantha are about to share, because I'm telling you, it is their testimony. It is huge what God can do, especially when you are in a place where you think that something is well far beyond your reach. So please share. One Day at a Time Farmstead. I think I said hello to you guys. Let's see. TNT Adventure says, "I've always told him he is still here for a reason. I'm feeling that right now. I hope their story helps many." I cannot agree with you more. We had such great conversation about that there is a reason why David feels called to share. And man, that's probably even bigger than he and and I even know. But I'm glad that both David and Samantha are here to share. Gillum Farms is here. Thank you, Johnny, for being here. And okay, I'm going to scroll super fast, and then we need to bring them in. And again, if I miss saying hi to you, I apologize, but I'm grateful for you being here. Leanne Gunther, hello, my sweet friend. I'm glad that you are here. All right. I am go. Oh, Kickapoo Crafty Cat is here. LaDonna, thank you. Ken, thanks for being here. I'm glad that you're listening. TNT Adventures says, I already need a tissue. Gosh, I understand that. I understand when your children come on, and really when anybody comes on. Thank you, Simply Jan, for sharing it out. It is so overwhelming. It is the Holy Spirit, the Lord. It is His presence is just, you can hardly speak. So I'm going to bring them in again. Thank you, everybody that is here. And Pooch, there's not a space after that hashtag or exclamation point if you tried that already. Okay, I'm bringing our guest in. Goat Daze is here. If you guys haven't checked out their channel, please do that as well.
Hi.
There are just two beautiful souls. I have to tell you, with the pictures on the trailer that was ran yesterday evening, the transformation that has taken place, that the Lord has done, your faces are completely different, completely different. And Samantha, when you shared those pictures with me yesterday, I mean, it is overwhelming to see. Again, I just feel just so close to the Lord now. It's just so choked up in the transformation that has taken place. And if you guys haven't seen those pictures, you got to go back and watch the trailer. I always try to do a promo for this channel, as well as the Facebook page, as well as podcast pages for people to see up and coming guests. And boy, oh boy, the Lord has certainly done His work within you guys. So I'm going to welcome you guys in, and you have big stories to share. We always start with sort of the hard, and we have to go through the hard to get to the good. And I think that is in life in general. But I think when there is a big picture shared in what God can do and has done, I think it brings people great hope. And that's the reason why you guys are here, to share your story. I will say, too, that we are not doctors. We are not therapists. We are just regular human beings that have stories to share. And the reason why we share these stories is not to glorify anything but God. And so, Samantha and David, I'm going to let you guys go ahead and take over. Again, thank you for coming in.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you, Tish.
All right, so I'm going to start off. So just so that you can see how all of this intertwines together, at the age of, I was probably 6 or 7, and I lived in Indiana. David's grandpa was my pastor, so they would come and visit every summer. So that's how I met David at a very young age, along with his mom and sister, brother, and his dad. So there for a while, David wasn't coming to Indiana. So up until probably about the age of 15, I think I was still being able to see his sister. That was about the time, I think I was 16 when I decided to start using opioids. So at that point, my life was a roller coaster. I still managed to graduate high school. I still managed to maintain a job, but I hid it so well. I kept it together for so long. And then at one point, I think I was 20, and I decided that I'm tired of this. I want to try to get clean. So I began to go to the methadone clinic. So I'm going to the methadone clinic. I started going in September of 2010. So I was trying my hardest, and I know that may not seem like the best route to go, but at that point, it was such a roller coaster. I didn't know what else I could do. So I felt like that was my only option. So being an addict, it done so many things to me that I couldn't see then. It was controlling my life. And then in April 2011, April 20th, 2011, now mind you, that year previously, and I will get choked up, so I'm sorry.
That's okay.
that year previously, my grandpa had committed suicide at the house that I was at. I was living with my grandmother so that she wouldn't be alone along with my cousin. I had taken Xanax on top of methadone that day. So I was running late to work. So I rushed down the road. I don't even remember what it was that I forgot. By the time I come back to the house, this something come over me to tell me to roll my window down and to not put my seatbelt on. I started flying down the road. The roads were wet, but it had just stopped raining. And I come around a curve too quick, and I hit a tree head on.
Like 60 mile an hour.
It was very fast. It was about 60 mile an hour. And I remember bracing for it. I don't remember how I got out of the car, but I was out of the car, and the only way that I was able to get out was through that driver's side window.
Mm.
So when that happened, I remember coming to on the road, and a woman standing to my right asking me, "Who do you want me to call? Who do you want me to call?" So I screamed my mom's phone number, and she wasn't that far away down the road. But I remember laying there screaming, telling them, "I'm bleeding, I'm bleeding, I'm bleeding." So what they ended up having to do is I think I had passed out, and I come to again, and there was a fire department chief. I remember him because of his aviator glasses, and he was about to pull that tarp over me because he thought I was gone. So they got me into, and there were so many trees where it was that the helicopter couldn't land just anywhere. So they had to figure out a way to get me into the ambulance, load me up, take me to where the helicopter was. And then I remember the last thing is telling the people that were inside the helicopter I'm cold, and I was out. I don't know how long I was out for, but I remember waking up in ICU and my mama rubbing the only spot on my body that she could, which was the top part of my left hand.
So let me ask you this, Samantha. The significance of rolling your window down, and you can kind of already see, well, not kind of, you can see where the Lord has already started to make sure that his daughter is able to get out of her car, because he knew this was getting ready to happen.
Yes.
And so had you worn your seatbelt, would that have...
I always wore my seatbelt. I had always worn my seatbelt, and it was the weirdest feeling, Tish, that come over me that day. The weirdest feeling, but I listened.
Mm-hmm. And had your grandfather, had he already, and I'm sorry for your loss, and especially the way that it happened, but had your grandfather already passed before this accident, or was this, okay, so that had already happened?
I think it was September of 2010. I think it was September. I don't fully remember. Mom, correct me. But then it rolled around to that April. So I'd been living out there for a few months at that point.
And so to kind of move back a little bit, and, parents that might be, parents that are doing the best job that they can.
Right.
You mentioned that you grew up in a good family. Your upbringing was good.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that parents who are raising their children well, or feel like they're doing the best job that they can, what was it that started your journey into trying opioids?
When my parents divorced at the age of 15, and a very prominent person in my life put them in front of me. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, okay, no big deal. No big deal. Not even knowing what addiction was, because up until that point, I had no idea about drugs. I knew nothing about it. But because of that person putting it in front of me, got it took in me.
Got it. Okay. So after your wreck, and the fact that you remember the firemen putting that tarp over you, believing that you had already passed, I can't imagine what that did to you? I mean, in terms of thinking, I mean, were you thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die,"
Yes.
or "They think I'm dead and I'm alive, somebody help me"? I mean, do you remember what was running through your mind at all? I mean, I know
Yes,
it's been
ma'am.
a minute.
I remember looking at him dead in the face and said, "Stand me up. I'm late for work." Verbatim is what I said. And then I guess I kept telling him, "Ow, ow,"
Mm,
the prong of my belt, because my uniform, I had to wear a regular belt. So the of that belt was actually shoved inside of my stomach, and he didn't know that, but they were cutting my clothes off of me to get me
mhm.
ready. And I guess I told him, because he later on actually came to see me and talk to me so I could thank him.
Oh, wow,
Yes, ma'am.
wow. Okay, so then you get to the hospital, and then what happens?
So I'm intubated. I'm in ICU for a week. I remember my mom talking to me, and then at that point, that's when they told me everything that I had suffered. So I had compound fractured my right humerus, my right elbow. Compound fracture meaning out of my skin. I broke my pelvis, open book fracture. So your pelvis sits like this. It pulled apart and it twisted. So I still have a plate here. I had to have a plate here. There was a plate put in my pelvis. I broke my left femur. They put a rod down in that. I broke the part that connects your shin to your foot because of me bracing. That's what caused that
Mhm.
to break. And then, as PG as possible, it about cut my leg off. If I had been the other sex, I would have been castrated.
Mm, my gosh.
That was bad.
So you're lucky to be alive,
Yes, ma'am.
obviously,
Absolutely.
and then when you start to move into recovery, you didn't think that you or the doctors didn't think that you were gonna be able to walk again,
Yeah.
um, and so you went through some painful, rehabilitation, and were you on pain meds at that time as well? Strong
Yes,
pain
ma'am.
meds? Mhm,
They
and
had
so
me
did
on Yeah, they had me on pain meds plus the
mm,
methadone that I was taking because they couldn't just stop me from the methadone regardless
okay.
of taking the other opiates. So what I was trying to get away from has now tripled more so.
Wow, wow. And so let me ask you this, and this is we're going back just a little bit, but, and I don't wanna minimize how your grandfather passed at all, but what is it about his passing that because every since we've talked about or ran through some of your story or testimony, what is it about speaking of your grandfather that, touches you so much or gets you so upset?
Because it probably wasn't but 20 feet away from where I had parked. And that just having that feeling, I'm sure it was the Holy Spirit, but there was also something else there
Mm,
to put that feeling over me. It is a feeling that I have never felt to this day, other than that one time.
mm.
Something that has completely come over my body. And I'm on Xanax and I'm on methadone. And the Holy
Wow.
Spirit still touched me.
Okay, so you start rehab
Yeah.
and
So
you're able
that
to walk.
it took some time. For the longest time I had to wobble, but it was some very, very difficult physical therapy that I can't even explain the depths to which I fought because they were telling me this stuff. I'm 21. I'm in a nursing home, is where I'm at. Luckily, the therapists that I had were phenomenal. They were amazing, and they fought just as hard as I did to come up with tactics and ways to be able to give me the therapy that I needed, because at that point I had nowhere to go. There was
Mm,
no place that was going to be able to either take me in or to be able to provide what I needed for me. So they went above and beyond. They put me in my own room by myself, and they stuck to the therapy. I remember trying to stand up. You wouldn't think that that would be so hard. I'm here to tell you it is super hard to learn how
mm,
to walk again, to even be able to get the mobility back. My hand, because when I broke this, I snapped my radial nerve in half. That's what controls your wrist. So for months, I'm like this. I could not move it. No matter what I did, I could not move it. And then one day it just started reviving itself. I had
Wow.
probably 26 surgeries within a 2-year period.
And so when you are miraculously able to start walking again, and of course, as you guys are sharing your podcast, or sharing your stories on the podcast, it's not like these things are happening one thing after another. I mean, there are months and just so much time that goes in between um, the healing process.
Yeah.
And so, for anybody that's listening, when they both share their stories or testimonies, sorry, I don't want people to have false hope and think, well, that happened for them, and look where they are now. I mean, because a lot of people, I will say, including myself, whenever I used to um, question my faith and question God, well, looks so easy for them. I mean, look where they're at now. But this comes with a lot of struggle. Both of your testimonies come with so much struggle and so much hardship and tragedy. And so once you're able to walk again, how do you and David get back together? I mean, are you still struggling in your addiction?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm still actively, and they're giving me sheets of the medication, so I
Mhm.
had overabundant amount. David felt froggy one day. I hadn't talked to him. He just looked me up on Facebook, and he sent me a message, and then so we talked for probably about a year. So I think we were officially together September of 22,
Mhm.
um, and then we've pretty much been together ever since then. But he was an addict. I was full blown addict. Didn't know the depth to which each other's addiction was at all, because it's easy to hide that stuff when you're over the phone. But that's when he and I did get together. We bounced around from my dad's house and then to my mom's house. We just couldn't. We were not self sufficient.
Mhm.
There was no, not even. I don't even want to say that there was a want. There was a. I don't know how. I
Mm.
don't know how to. I don't know how to come out of this. So we would jump from place to place in Indiana, and then when we felt like we weren't on our welcome, then we would jump from place to place in Oklahoma, and we actually went back and forth like that for a couple years, a few years, and then at one point in 2016, he and I ended up being homeless here in Oklahoma. Um, so at that point, I was still getting a disability check from my car wreck. So that was, of course, helpful, but it wasn't a whole lot. So I had decided that if I could work under the table and try to have a place to live, then that's what I would try to do. So we had gotten a room at a hotel, and then I went down there and spoke with them and asked them if they needed any help. And because I held my addiction so well, they had no clue. They had no
Mm.
clue that I was high.
Mhm. Mhm.
But they gave me the job, and then at one point, uh, the the owner would come and visit, but the manager was going back to India to go see his family for a month. So they had asked me and David at that point. David was doing maintenance, and I was taking care of all the managerial things. So they left. And then at that point, when they left, it was like the addiction. I was more addicted to the pain pills. I'd only done heroin one time, but I had recently at that point started using meth. And and that wasn't my choice, my drug of choice, but with being an addict, if it's laid in front of you by a cracky, that's what I'm gonna do.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
that's I was into that at that point. But when they left, it was like all of that skyrocketed. There was no holding back. We had a place to live. We had money. There wasn't anything stopping us at that point. So, are you okay with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I felt like I was fighting to try to keep a roof over our head. And I knew something wasn't quite right with David, but I couldn't catch him.
Mhm.
So I knew something was going on. Well, one night I woke up to start getting up and getting ready to go into the office. And I come into the bathroom. Now, mind you, I had previously told him that if I ever caught him doing this, I was out. I was done. And I come into the bathroom to start getting ready, and I find my husband with his arm outstretched across the top of the toilet lid with a needle in his arm. So it wasn't long after that, maybe a week, that I held to my word. That was one level that I never wanted to be a part of, never wanted to reach. So my mom came and picked me up.
Mm.
And then we were separated for probably about 3 months. Even me and my addiction, I knew that something our recovery had to be faith-based. And he was actually the first one that took that step. So in 2016, after that, he got clean, and by cracky, he was not taking no for an answer. He got a few months under his belt, and he rented a car. He came and picked me up and promised my mama that he would do better. And now here we are, 7 years later.
Wow, 7 years later. Wow. So let me ask you this, Samantha. W Being in charge at the hotel, having that responsibility and whatnot, and you had said something that I think a lot of, either addicts or parents or family or friends of someone who is an addict need to know that nothing can stop you. There's nothing that I mean, people can't love it out of you. I
Right.
mean, if you're an addict, even though they say, "I love you so much, please stop," and there's not anything so that people maybe will gain some I don't not blaming themselves as a parent, okay? So
Right.
so so yes, maybe there are things that happen in our lives. I mean, as a child, I mean, I was beaten and abused, but I've forgiven my father, but there are choices that parents, people make that might aid in I wanna say this is the right way without placing blame on parents, that might cause someone to think, "You know what? Screw it, I'm gonna go and drink because this life
Right.
sucks," but then that would still be a choice that I would have made.
Ultimately would.
Um, so there is nothing that anyone could say or do to make you stop. Is that
No.
correct?
No, it has to be a personal decision. You have to want to do it for you, and that's the only way it's going to work.
That's
And
it.
putting God in the middle of it. Those two things right there, and anything is possible.
Exactly. Okay. So, David, I want to move to you and have you start from your beginning as a child. And before you get started, let me just ask Samantha this real fast.
Okay.
Where was your had you had a relationship with the Lord? Were you introduced to I know that you said that you met David at because his papa was preaching.
Yes.
And so you had been going to church. So you obviously you had been introduced to who God is and
Yes.
and whatnot. But I know that there will be a lot of young listeners, and I will speak for myself. But as a kid who moved out of the house at 18, I was like, heck yeah, I'm on my own.
Yep.
I'm not being drugged to church and
Right.
I'm not being made to go to church. And I was introduced to who God was. But I know now that I did not have a personal relationship with the Lord. I knew who he was. I
Right.
was praying. Once I got out on my own, it was like a free for all.
Yep.
And so I mean, I really chose to not go to church every Sunday like I was. So was that where you were in your in your age during all this happened,
Yes,
when all this
ma'am.
happened?
Yep, yep. I couldn't even think about step. I was so convicted that I struggled to if I had felt like I wanted to go to church just because of the addiction. That's when you beat the devil is alive and he makes you feel like you're worthless, like you don't have any grace, or
I
he
remember
doesn't have
you still
mercy.
being pretty angry with God
I
when we
was
got
for the
together.
longest. I was very angry with God, but as I have grown and matured, I've learned that that wasn't him.
Mhm.
That wasn't his fault. There was little things in there that he did to save me from myself. But the incidents that had happened were my own decisions. But at that time, yes, I was very angry. I
Mhm.
didn't want anything to do, but it took me some time because my body completely changed. My body was completely different than what I had ever known. And I was such a young age to try to navigate life out at that point. So I was angry. I was angry at God. I had to have somebody to blame it on. At
Sure.
that time, I couldn't accept accountability for myself. So he was the target, shaking my fist at him. So it did. Yeah, it took me some time to grow and to learn that
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
wasn't him. That wasn't him. He was there protecting me.
And I appreciate you saying that because I know that there are people that will think, feel that guilt or shame or
Uh-huh.
blame themselves. And the enemy is so good at making all of us believe those things. And it's so good to share that so that someone who might be 20 in their 20s, 1920s, maybe in their 30s, that feel like, you know, I'm guilty because I was not a good person, or I'm guilty because I'm doing drugs and I'm trying to get clean, but there's not a church that wants me there. And
Right.
it's not even the church. It is a personal relationship with the Lord that
Yep.
is what's important. I mean, church and community are extremely important. If you can find a church that will welcome you with open arms without judgment. But the truth is that we are all sinners saved by God's grace, thank God.
Everybody.
And there is nothing you can say or do, shake your fists. He's a big God. He can take it, and he loves you regardless. And so for anybody that might be listening and thinking, well, I've been in my 20s and I've walked away from God, you can walk right back.
Right back.
Okay, David, I'm going to move to you and have you start and share your story, David. What kind of
Okay.
childhood did you have?
Oh, well, growing up, as she said, my papa was a pastor, so me and my siblings had the seed of Christ put in us at a very young age. Um, and what's crazy is I remember even being like 10, 11, 12 years old, if I was home here in Oklahoma and around my friends, all of that stuff was just out the window. But I was so dedicated to it whenever I was at my papa or my granny's house because that's all we talked about. We talked, teaching us about the Lord and all of that. So I've always known Christ, but like you said, I've always known him, but I didn't have that relationship. I don't think
Mhm.
I truly understood it. Uh, so uh, when I started sports, at a really young age. I was pretty a good athlete at just about
Mhm.
anything I put my hands to. I probably could have done a lot of things with it if I would have done it right. But I'm the oldest of three siblings, and my freshman year, or no, maybe in eighth grade, because I remember the high school team was there watching us play football, and they seen me running the ball and seen me play. Well, they immediately let me be a part of the group.
Hmm.
And so whenever I started hanging with them, it didn't take very long because then we were going to parties and this was introduced and it just escalated. Well, it went into a meth addiction. And I remember for probably 2 years, and you got to figure I was young. I was 15, 16 when this started.
Mhm.
And I always said, I had buddies, I knew people that would do IV use. And I always said I would never do it. And it got to a point when we were partying for 1 week and, been up for a few nights and I just couldn't get the energy back up. I just wanted to crash no matter what I did. And that's whenever I actually decided to have them use a needle on me. And that started a train wreck.
Mm.
And I was honestly kind of in and out of addiction. I like I said, I've always known Christ, so I've always known that there's a road I need to be taking, but that other part of me just pulled me that way. And so whenever I was, let's see, 19, my best friend had died of an overdose in March of 2004. And I was with my girlfriend at the time, and she got pregnant. She had the baby. We came home with her, and she accidentally fell asleep in bed with her in the bed. And I rolled over on top of her, and it suffocated her. It was Tara Ann. So that was a very, it was a hard thing to deal with. It really was. But the thing is even through that time, that of course the first 3 to 6 months, I mean, it was just unbearable. But I eventually had a peace about it. I do today. I have such a peace about it because I know who Christ is, and she was a little baby, so I know exactly where she's at. So maybe
And David, I'm going to stop you there just to sort of bring some maybe clarity to maybe those that don't have a personal relationship with God, or maybe don't know or want to know who God is. It's very hard to for people that don't know who he is, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to understand that. And I have to say that when we lost our son Ben, eventually there was a peace about it,
Yeah.
and I can only say, and that yours and mine and anyone else who knows who God is and knows how good he is, that we know where they are, and they're happier than they ever would have been here on earth.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
but with that, I have to, gosh, say how sorry I am, because I can't even imagine, the second that you realized that the baby was asleep in the bed, and then you accidentally rolled over and smothered her to death, and how that could impact your life, especially if you're having problems with addiction. I mean, how that could maybe turn your life upside down.
Right.
And the other thing I want to say before you continue is that there's a beauty in life and death. There was beauty in the life, the death of Jesus Christ, as hard as it was, but the reason for his sacrifice is so beautiful.
Yes.
And there's beauty in the resurrection. And so I believe that is maybe where, I'll speak for myself, but maybe that's where I find the beauty in life and death. I found beauty in obviously my son Ben's life, and there was beauty after he passed. Once you get through some of that initial pain, you understand where he is and whose he is. And so I understand that. But man, how heartbreaking that must have been for you and your girlfriend. And so did that was that something that maybe sent you into a tailspin downward?
Yes. So we both went downhill. And the thing is her mom, she was always anti everything, but after that happened, she went down a lot with me, and we just kind of separated. I mean, we were still together, and we felt like we needed to fill a hole, so she ended up getting pregnant again, and when she had Miracle in 2006, and we have custody of her now. That's why her name's Miracle. She was our miracle baby. But yeah, it spiraled down, and like I said, even through the years, it was up and down. Like, I'd do good for a little while, and well, after we went downhill on that, by the time Miracle was 2, we separated. And whenever we separated, that's when, I mean, all hell broke loose with me. Like, it was just over with. I felt like I had no hope, nothing to live for. instead of looking at it the right way. I've got a little girl I need to take care of, and I was just trying to block those feelings. And I got at that point had got back into IV use really, really bad. And I went to rehab several times. I'd probably say 6 or 7 times within the whole stretch.
Mhm.
But the whole time that I was doing those rehabs, I was trying to do it because other people wanted me to do it. It
Mm.
wasn't a personal decision.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was just, it's horrible what I put my mom and my family through.
Mm.
And I feel so, I don't know, that stuff tears me up so much. But I was on the streets. I literally was homeless my whole life. I think I held a home whenever Tara was born in 2004. I was doing fairly good for a couple years. We had our own place. Everything was going good. But from that point on, I don't think I ever even had my own place. I was couch surfed for till I was 32 years old.
Mm.
I mean, I was so deep in this addiction that, and while I was in it too, the thing is, like, of course, I had my daughter Miracle, and I was never absent in her life, and Jesus was always in my heart.
Mm.
And like I said, I knew the right road now, I pushed that on my daughter at a very, very young age. I remember her catching the bus when she was 5, 6 years old to go to Sunday school.
Mhm.
So I made sure and drilled that in, even though I'm living the life of the devil. But I
Mm.
just knew,
What's kind of like you said when we were chatting is that, the seed was planted in the beginning, even with your grandfather, your papa. He had also had um, he was an alcoholic. Is that correct?
yes, yes. And
Okay.
he was
And
in and out of
so,
prison, and yeah, he had a very, very rough life.
and then he became sober and became a
Yeah.
pastor.
Oh
Yep.
yes, yes, and that's an amazing story in itself. It's
Yep.
really long, but I'll kind of glaze over it. He
Sure.
got pulled over one time by a highway patrol, and instead of taking him to jail, the highway patrol drove by a church and introduced him to who Christ was, and took him home, and I'm sure he still struggled for a couple of years, but he was very, very in. Whenever he did make the full change, my papa was like, he was all in. I
Mm.
mean, you could just tell it by the way he talked, the way he act. But yeah, if it wasn't for that situation happening,
Wow.
my life could have been so much different. So
Mhm.
much different.
Mhm.
I thank them so much. My granny's still around. She praying for us all the time, and I believe a lot of her prayers is what saved our lives.
Mhm.
But
I believe that prayer is definitely so powerful. And you had also said that in 2009 that you were even at your aunt's house, and you were clean there for about 9 to 10 months. Is that correct?
yes, yes, I went to Missouri to stay with them, and like you said, I was clean for about 9, 10 months. I had a job, and I decided, or I got a hold of a friend, started talking to a friend from here on Facebook, and I ended up having her come there because she was telling me, "Oh, I want to do what you're doing. I want to get clean," and I was lonely,
Mhm.
and so I called her, and she showed up, and within 2 weeks, we were back on the street. My aunt had kicked us out.
Mhm.
She had two little babies, and she had an 8-year-old or 8-month old baby and a 3 or 4-year-old little boy. So we were in the streets again, and we found a person that used to be married to my aunt, and he had a rent house. So he let us stay in that rent house in Independence, Missouri. So we stayed there, and that just slowly trickling right back to the same old thing. Because you got to figure this person I brought up, though, this is a person from my bad times. Like, it was a horrible mistake. So we were living in that house, and she ended up meeting somebody at the convenience store or something like that, and she just took off. And we had been on drugs for 3 weeks, and so I had no business having 2 babies with us for sure. And so she left, and I took the babies down to the park. Well, whenever I went down to the park, there was a bunch of women having this group talk or whatever. And I remember the lady coming asking me if I was okay, and she ended up calling the cops. And now I understand why. Seeing somebody that's got 2 babies, been strung out, obviously strung out for that long. Well, so the cop showed up, and unfortunately, them babies went to CPS through CPS because I didn't know anybody to call. And this girl was gone. Their mom was just completely gone. I didn't know what to do. So I really had no choice. Besides that, we were living in a house with no furniture. I admitted everything. When the cops first got there, I admitted everything. I told them, I said, this is what I'm doing. I've been clean for 9 months. And now I'm over this. I went and showed him exactly where all the drugs were, gave him everything like that. I was at that point where I was like, I'm done. I don't know what I'm doing. So then I got stuck in Kansas City, Missouri, downtown. And for about 3 days. And remember, I hadn't had sleep very much at all in about a 2-week stretch. So I finally get a hold of my dad. And my dad sends the money and gets me a Greyhound. So I go up to Oklahoma City. Well, my dad's in Oklahoma City already because of alcoholism. He was living with his aunt trying to get himself right. So they brought me up there. I found a program that was through the church they went to, and I was on fire. On fire. I mean, I can remember, and it was the best feelings in the world. I'd have people come up to me and say, man, I can just see something glowing on you, and it was just such an amazing feeling. I'll never forget that comment that guy made to me. But yeah, I got clean, and for about 6-7 months, and that's whenever I got a hold of Samantha. And then after I got a hold of her, it really went, I don't know why, it just shot down even worse. My addiction was just insane. So finally, I was just like, whatever, and got on a Greyhound, packed me a duffel bag full of clothes, and took off to Indiana. And yeah, so for the first, and I never was like an opioid addict. I was more meth. So I mean, I've taken pain pills and stuff like that before, but it was never like. But whenever I moved up there, and it wasn't long after she had her wreck. So she had tons of pills. And so we went on that road for about 4 years. And then, like she said, we came back to Oklahoma, and yeah, we ended up living in a car at the lake for a little while. And then we got that motel. And whenever she caught me doing that, which I had been away from that for quite a while.
Yeah.
And but being in that motel, like it was a drug haven. Yeah. Like there was just everybody there,
Wow.
So yeah, I end up picking up a needle again, and that lasted for about a week. And that's when she walked in on me, and we got into a huge fight. They kicked me off the premises. So I walked down the road to where my brother was and stayed with him for a night. And of course, that night I just went nuts with addiction, getting messed up. And
mind you, it was in the hood. Like when I say hood,
yeah, it was in a very bad part of Tulsa. And so I hadn't heard from her in a few days, and I really didn't think I'd ever hear from her again, because understandably so. But she finally messaged me that one day and said that if you want us to stay together, you have got to find a faith-based rehab. And I immediately, I know this sounds bad, but my brother just kind of pushed all my stuff over, called my mom, and she came and picked me up. And so I got a hold of a treatment center in McAllister. And I went up there for about a week, and things just weren't going right. I can say this, that it was good for, because I had a good detox. I had a good, safe place to detox myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I end up leaving there about a week after, and had my mom come pick me up, came back, and just started pounding pavement again. I mean, walking to the library, I had blisters all over my feet, just running to the library to do all the application stuff. Got a hold of a center that I'd went to years ago, which I was shocked that they actually accepted me because things didn't go well last time I was there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was the beginning of the end right there. I mean, that was ever since then. Like I said, whenever I would try to pray, it felt so empty. But I think it was because I was so empty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that relationship. I'm not saying God wasn't there, but it was almost like he was on pause, like figure it out or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. But so whenever I was in rehab, when I first went to rehab, I really was doing it for the same reasons I told you I'd always done before. I just wanted to do it because she wanted me to do it. Do I got to do? That was my mindset. Do what I got to do. Get her here, and then we can get back on the road and do our thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, about a month into my rehab, we went to a church service, and I cannot remember what the message was the preacher was saying, but I remember one thing, and he said, if you want to be able to change your life, you have got to fix yourself. You're not going to be able to change anything around you until number one is fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And that just pierced me, like completely pierced me. That was the beginning of my actual relationship with Christ. And I remember calling Sam that day or the next day and letting her know, this is it. I don't know how long I'm going to be gone. I don't know how long this is going to take, but I'm riding it out until I know that I'm right. And yeah, so
And Sam, what did that mean to you when you heard David say, "This is it. This is it"? I mean, was there doubt in your mind?
Every bit of it. I thought, okay, he's full of the dookie.
Yeah, I don't believe she actually.
Because I was still, mind you, I'm telling him he needs to go to, like, I'm barking orders at him that he needs to go to a faith-based recovery, and here I am still on opioids. So, but I did not believe, knowing him as the addict and how bad it was, to think of a complete 180. In my mind just couldn't fathom it, even for myself.
Sure.
But I loved him enough and took him seriously. I followed him in recovery. He other than God, of course, but because he made that choice, I followed because I loved him enough.
And you know, as we were chatting before, and it's so important for men to hear this, is that, you know, a woman will follow their husbands, and that's why it's so important for husbands to be followers of Christ, because you are the leader. And
Absolutely.
you know, in God's word it says, you know, that we as women, we submit to our husbands, and husbands are to submit to the Lord and love his wife as Christ loves the church. And so thank God, you know, it's such that is such a, for lack of a better word, such a prime example of the reason why the leader of the family needs to be so grounded in their faith, because you have somebody, whether it's a spouse or children, somebody that's looking at you and want to follow you. You are the leader. You are your
Yeah.
child's father, and that
Yeah.
their first glimpse of a fatherly relationship comes from you. And that's a lot. That's a lot to take on, but it's the best thing for everybody
Yeah.
ultimately.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so then one thing, David, that you said when we were chatting, and then I see some comments and some questions that I want to go to before we move further. But one thing that you said is you wanted to get clean. You wanted to get clean, but you couldn't.
Yeah.
And I think for anybody that might be addicted to something, whether it's for me, it's Diet Cokes. For some, it might be food. For others, it could be not eating. So people are addicted to all different kinds of things. And so those that are addicts will understand, I wanted to quit, but I couldn't. But maybe a parent that is listening might think otherwise. Like, if you really wanted to quit, why didn't you just quit?
Yeah, and
Put
I
it
understand
down.
that. I understand that completely. I mean, that makes sense.
But
But I think being stuck so long in that life, first off, thinking about where we are now was just unrealistic, completely unrealistic. And I think it's more so a fear of having to deal with your emotions,
Yep.
having to deal with normal life. You see what I'm saying?
Facing
Until
Mhm.
I was 32 years old, I never had to worry about paying bills or this or that. You know, all that. The only focus I had was drugs.
Mm.
And I think I believe it's just a fear. It's a fear of
That
having
makes
to deal with
so much
reality.
sense.
Yes. Yeah. It's a fear of dealing with reality.
And like you said, in admitting.
Yes.
And the other is seeing something that you want that doesn't even seem attainable, a house, a car, a job. It seems so unattainable that sometimes addicts may just say, never going to get there.
Yep.
Might as well
Right,
just
right. And
stay
you
where I'm
almost
at.
you use that as an excuse
to continue on.
to continue on that path.
Yep.
So
Man. So rehab and your decision, your desire to want to get better, you finally found that. And thank God, you can just see, and I'm sure people that are listening and watching can see God's hand in every single step of the way, even though you may not have had a personal relationship in the beginning, but even as far back as Samantha rolling her window down and not putting her seatbelt on when she always does, but there was a presence, the Lord, grandpa, somebody that's telling her to do those things, and God just planting even further back, your grandfather being an alcoholic and then becoming sober and becoming a pastor. Wow. And planting those seeds in your parents and your family members, planting the seeds of the Lord within you.
yes.
And you
Yeah.
can just see that in your whole testimony. And I think that's why they're called testimonies, is because you can see how God has planted his seed. And
I can honestly say there's so many times I shouldn't be here. Same thing with her case. Overdoses. I've literally tried to overdose myself before.
Mm.
Car accidents. I've rolled cars. I've been in so many extreme situations that I shouldn't be here. I mean, if you in reality, they just don't make sense why I'm still here. But like I said, I've always had that. It was a relationship, but it wasn't the right kind of relationship. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So yeah, there's nobody in this world that can convince me that Jesus Christ is not the way, because like I said, I tried doing it several times without him, and it never worked. It always failed.
Mm.
But soon as I came to that realization that this is about me and having a true relationship with my father, once I figured that out, it was a game changer. It was a game changer.
Yep.
And yeah. I love him so much, and all the glory goes to him for sure.
Every
There's
bit
no
of it.
doubt about it,
Every
because
bit.
I'm telling you, there's no other way this would have happened without putting Jesus in the center of it. And
Man,
I'm so thankful.
and there is so much purpose in and the reasons why you guys wanted to come on and share your story is to, man, give somebody a glimmer of hope and to let them know that, how real Jesus is, because there is
Yes.
no way on this earth that you could have done any of this on your own.
No.
I mean, even
No.
within your story, all of the, if
I
people want to
tried.
call them exactly. And you tried
Yeah.
to take your own life. You tried to OD, and the Lord was like, nope, not today, and so
Today.
there's a reason why. And I believe that a big part of it, of course, I don't know what the future holds, but like I said, we know who holds the future. But I think a big part of it is because is a thing such as this, sharing your story, yes, to give God the glory and to let others know that it's not too late. It is not
Yeah.
too
Never.
late.
This is everybody's calling. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story.
Yes.
Now, one may seem a little worse than the other, but everybody has a story. And our calling is to use what Christ has done in our lives to save others. I mean, it's that simple. That's what it's all about. Love God, love yourself, and love your neighbor. I mean, that's exactly what it's about. And that's what I want out of this. I want this to give somebody hope.
Yep.
I want it to get, because I'm telling you, if it can happen with me, I'm telling you, I was just like Paul said in the Bible, I was the worst of the worst.
Hmm.
I mean, if he can do that for us, he can do it for. There's nobody out there that can't
Be safe.
be saved.
Everybody.
And I so know that somebody somewhere, whether it's one person or many, there's somebody that's going to gain hope and thinking, man, I'm not a lost cause. If by you sharing your story, if God will help them, he'll help me. Somebody somewhere is going to hear. And I'm going to take just a quick break and then we'll come back. I want to take a break and come back to like one of the questions that I think Melinda Dobson had asked earlier is how many years were you guys on drugs, and like how long did it take? Because she too was had a struggle with being on drugs. How long were you guys on drugs? How many years?
Mine was probably about 11. I got sober at the age of 26 and I started 15, 16.
Wow.
Was about how long.
Yeah.
I think he was quite a bit longer.
Well, I started my full blown bad addiction started about the time I was 16. I had dabbled with it for a couple of years before then, but that's when it really
Took hold.
dropped out of high school, like completely just ruined my life immediately. So, and that was off and on until I was 32. So 17 years, I think. Yeah, it was a
Wow,
long time.
man. And so that gives such great perspective in how deep and how long you guys were in the pits. And
pit.
then, man, something that you saw was not attainable. And here you are.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
your home, getting ready to move. You have a great channel that people can go to. And David, I feel like this is just the beginning of David and Samantha, the beginning of something that God needs for you to do, and that is to continue to on many platforms, because we all have different followers, many platforms to share your testimony.
Right.
Um,
And I'm gonna say YouTube has been so. I still deal with a lot of mental issues, and I mean I did meth for that many years, so
He's
you know
got
I deal with like social anxiety and things like that. I'm still shaking nervous right now, but I deal with those
Really?
kind of things, and
Yes.
I know that what it's from. It was self-inflicted, you
Mm.
know, but I don't know. Nothing. There's nothing that anybody. I don't care how far, how deep you are in an addiction. There is no way that you cannot be saved by Jesus. It's just, he's so real, and it's, I don't know. Okay, that's what I was saying. In my YouTube channel, that has helped me mentally a lot since I started doing YouTube. I don't know what it is, because
It's like a personal diary.
yeah,
for
talking
him.
to the camera every day, and it has made such a tremendous difference in my life since I started doing this. Even in the first 6-7 months, I didn't have a whole lot of followers, but it wasn't about that. It was, in my mind, it was more, this is something my daughter will have for the rest of her life.
Mm.
I would love to be able to go back and watch my dad basically his whole life, and that was kind of the thing. I mean, I hoped that it would grow and maybe it'll do something, but it wasn't serious when I first started it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been life changing. Doing YouTube has really been life changing mentally. It really has.
He's learning how to express himself a little bit better. That was something.
Well, I was going to
that,
ask you, what are some of, so maybe someone that is dabbling in whatever, what are some of the issues that were self-inflicted? What are those things that you are still struggling with? Do you got,
like I said, like social anxiety, that kind of stuff. Before I started doing YouTube, like I feel like I just wanted to lay around, you know, and so I'd go to work, come home, turn on the TV, and that was basically my life.
Hmm.
And once I started YouTube, it just
occupied.
Yeah, it occupied, and like I don't know, it's almost therapy. It
Mhm.
really is, having the camera and talking to the camera and making your own videos. Yeah,
The
And it's a
anxiety
great
that he dealt
community.
with, though, he still deals with anxiety to a level that I've only had a few times, but it's something that he consistently goes through. You can see him shaking his hands, like his
Yeah.
hands are starting to go numb. Like he's trying to navigate life without having that being high to where you don't give a crap.
Yeah.
When you're high, you don't care. But whenever you don't have it and you don't know how to control what's happening in your brain, or if you just literally have no control over it whatsoever, that is something that he has grown in. He has
Yeah.
developed, and it's been amazing just to watch him. Because I try to find the statistics, but for somebody to be an IV drug user and to have remained clean, I feel like those statistics are very low. You
Yeah.
know?
Yes. Yes. And wow, that is such a huge part, I'm sure, of one's recovery is, and maybe a huge part of why they stay addicted, because they don't know how
Yep.
to deal with these real feelings that are going to come up once you quit, and it's like you got to deal with them some other way other than drinking or smoking or pills or whatnot. And I'm sure that is what keeps people going back, because maybe they don't have the support. Maybe they don't. Maybe it is something that causes panic attacks or anxiety. I don't know how
And
I'm
you
going to do
start
this. I'd
feeling
rather.
empty, almost like there's an empty
You
hole,
don't love
which
yourself.
is very true. There is an empty hole. If you don't know Jesus, there's nothing in this world that's going to replace that hole in your heart other than Jesus. It just never will. I mean, that's why they say
Absolutely.
with people that have millions of dollars and TV stars, they struggle worse than anybody, because they got that deep hole that they can't figure out how to fill it.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. That is so true. And I think too, the reason why a lot of people struggling with who they are, I don't know who I am. I've been seeking, I'm searching, I'm trying to find out. Well, until you have a relationship with God, it's going to be ongoing. You're going to
Right.
continue to try to figure out who you are, because I feel like so much of your purpose, y'all's purpose, is sharing this and sharing, because it makes me excited. Like, I already have a personal relationship with God, but you guys sharing your story, I'm like, he is that good. He can do that. He did it.
Yeah.
And you guys are such proof that he is good. Let's see. I'm going to go through some of the comments for you guys, and then I have a couple of questions to ask you. So Josh with Sherman's Family Farm says, sometimes we are better being there and helping others than we are at helping ourselves. And some of these questions are kind of a little bit earlier. David, your mom says, y'all, I have to say he did this all on his own. As his mom, all I could do is pray. When you dealt with this for so long, you realize that they have to do it. Thank you for, what's your mom's name?
Tracy.
Tracy. Thank you, Tracy, for sharing that. Linda Dobson says, God tells the man, then the woman goes where he goes. True. Especially, I mean, when you are married and my son and I were just talking about this. He performed a wedding yesterday, but understands why there's, as a pastor himself, understands why there is premarital counseling, why you need to take those steps. And when you're married and in God's house, that the man leads the family, and the wife and the children will follow for sure. Okay. There was another one. God's word never comes back void, and it never changes.
No,
Right.
that's absolutely correct.
Because the Lord has the biggest picture. He's not finished with him. Our God is an awesome God. That's
Yes.
right.
Amen.
Yes. Amen.
One Day at a Time Homestead says, David, it is so important you are sharing, because not everyone understands what drives people to do these things, and then we judge them because
Yep.
we don't have a clear understanding. And that is exactly.
And that's a
on.
big reason
Spot
why like I told you when we talked the other day, my
Mhm.
YouTube channel, the initial reason was to get our story out there and to help somebody else. I mean, that really is, yes,
It is.
good.
You guys have a question here. Maybe you can both help. Or maybe Tracy can type in the comments. What, as a parent, can you do for your loved one who is battling addiction? So let's say there's parents out there that just found out. I mean, because I did a podcast where a lady buried two of her kids. I think it was 4 months apart because of this new pandemic of what's the name of the drug, babe?
Fentanyl.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what a parent finds out that their child is addicted. What can a parent do? From both of you? Maybe you guys both have some insight.
That's a hard question because there's really not a lot you can do except for speak truth to them and hope that they hear it.
And do not enable.
Yeah, do not enable.
Mm.
That's for sure. My family, for
So what are ways to enable that we enable?
give you money, give you somewhere to sleep. I mean, money's the big thing.
Yeah.
And like I used my mom for years because I
Mm.
knew she'd never say no. And
I couldn't imagine being in that position and having your child and not wanting to turn them away, especially when they're coming to you. I'm hungry, or I don't
Yeah.
have a place to lay my head.
But like I said, there's nothing you can do to force anything on somebody. That has to be a personal relate. They have to change that in their heart.
And you were going to say something, David. You said your family. Did your family? Did
Oh
they
yeah,
handle
yeah.
you?
They washed their hands of me completely.
Initially, of course,
and at
they
the
first
time,
did. They didn't
for
know what they
many
were doing.
years, at the time, it just didn't make sense to me. Like I was mad at them for being that way, but looking back now, it makes so much sense because honestly, that's what drove me to my rock bottom. My family washed their hands of me. I never hardly got to see my daughter. And then that fight happened with Sam and she was gone. And that was it. You couldn't go no lower. It was either death or prison.
Mm-hmm.
And because I remember telling the guy at that motel, I went to pick up some of our stuff with my mom. And I even told him, I said, I'm getting clean, man. I'm getting clean. And I remember that guy saying, well, we'll see. But it immediately was, I knew what I had to do. But at the same time, I had lost so much hope because Sam was gone. This was all I had. We were around each other 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whenever she left, that's what made me hit my rock bottom. But like I said, when she sent that message and told me what I needed to do, I did not think twice. I mean, I was immediately like, this is it. And that's where we went.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. Sorry, I was just I'm in awe. I mean, I just in awe of what God can do. And okay, let me go back down with it. Also, there was a comment here from Maddie at Backwoods Mindset. Maddie, I had no idea. But he says, I wish my brother would have found God before it was too late. I'm
I'm so
sorry.
sorry. I'm so sorry. And that's the thing too. We were actually pretty lucky that, I mean, it was wasn't long after we changed our life when this fentanyl stuff started coming in. So it couldn't have
Wow.
been a better time to get yourself right. Because right
Again.
now is a very, very, very dangerous time to be doing any kind of drugs, pills. It doesn't matter because that fentanyl is everywhere.
It
Yeah, it's
is.
scary.
It
I'm
is.
sorry to hear that. I am very sorry
But
to hear
Maddie,
that.
I feel like Simply Jan is right. There could have been something that could have happened right before his passing where he asked the Lord into his heart because he just had a feeling that something was going to happen.
This is
So
true.
you never know.
Right.
You
That's right.
never know. All it takes is that just one time accepting him as your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Do you guys battle at all with the temptation? I mean, do you guys struggle with, and if you do, or maybe in the beginning, if you did,
Yeah.
what did you do?
I mean, we relapsed maybe twice within the first 2 years, but it wasn't a big relapse. Like it was immediately like remind you, like, okay, that's why I'm not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
What was I gonna say? What was the question again?
If you ever had urges after you relapsed.
Okay, so the urges come.
He would have.
If we get into a fight, or get into an argument, a normal argument, we don't fight. I don't know, that sound bad. We don't fight all the time, but just normal couple arguments. And yeah, that's always like right there in the back of your head, like, hey man, I could just go cover this up right now if I wanted to.
And so what do you do to fix that? Do you talk it out? Have you changed?
Just pray to God. And really, really just pray. And, I'll open a Bible app and just remind myself where we are, where we've came from. And there's no way I'll ever go back. I mean, it's been so long now, and God's got such a grip on my heart that I really don't feel like there's anything in this world to make me slip back to that lifestyle. No. It's done. He took it away.
He did suffer from some of the craziest dreams for probably the first 2 years.
Yes, I did.
Where it would cause him, like he'd come to me and like saying that because of that dream, he was having an urge, like he was physically doing these drugs.
Yes, and that made it really hard too.
I know it did. But it feels so real to him. I don't ever like at first initially for the first year or two I did have urges. But now I honestly I don't think about
No.
I've created a whole new life, so my mind doesn't go back to living in that state.
Now it's more of whenever that thought comes across your mind, it's disgusted feeling. Instead of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have such a heart for people out there that are going through it because I understand. I completely understand. And it does feel so lonely, and it's the worst feeling ever. And I have so much love for them because I feel like they don't get paid enough attention.
Yeah.
They don't, in a way, you know what I'm saying? Like they just don't seem like people have got a heart for them. And someone that hasn't lived that life their whole life, and they're walking down the road and they see a drug addict or someone walk by and they're just like, get that. Like, no, we need to get in there and at least speak truth to them, whether or not it's going to change anything or not. Truth has to be spoken to these people, and and that right there is what's going to change people's hearts.
That is so true. And I mean, do you guys have you felt like, because I heard you guys share this one day, that you feel like David, being a person that has tattoos and whatnot, that you feel like you have been judged, that people judge you guys?
Oh, I am judged. And none of this, first I want to say, none of this is about poor pity me. Nothing like that.
Right.
But But yes, I am. I've got tattoos on the side of my neck, on the back of my neck, all over my arms, and it's immediate. Just, I mean, not everybody, but a very good majority of people will always make a sudden decision on what kind of person I am.
Mm.
And
Police will.
yeah, I am literally complete opposite of what you see. I feel like I am a perfect example of do not judge a book by its cover.
Right.
Mm.
And yeah. And that's hard though. That's hard to deal with that.
I'm
Good
sure that it
point.
is. So a couple of comments too. Back to Good says saying out loud the feelings you normally kept inside is therapeutic.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, that
Um,
makes sense. That makes sense with the YouTube thing being kind of therapy, you know.
absolutely.
Pressure.
Your mom says that God is directing you to where he is needed. I believe that. I just feel that. I see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Before the camera, we have a greater accountability because your followers are watching. We want to be better.
Yep.
I myself on here. I'm myself on here way I've been all my life. Core
Thank you,
Phelps.
Coach.
Core Phelps says accountability is hard to face. It is. It's hard
It
even
is.
when you are
Very.
not addicted. You know, I don't know
Right.
why the struggle is so real when people have, you know, you admit that you're wrong. I made a mistake. Sorry. You know, it is.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
That is definitely
It
the
is.
first step. You have to know that you are powerless and you are accountable for all the bad things. And that's probably the hardest step to take in the entire process is just at the beginning.
And how about your families before we go? How about your families? Your families now, uh, have you asked for forgiveness? Do they
Yes,
talk to
Oh
I have a
yeah.
great relationship. Me and my dad have never got along my whole life because I was just like a punk kid. So we never got along. But since I've gotten clean, me and my dad have an amazing relationship. Me and my mom have an amazing relationship, which we always have. I've been a mama's boy my whole life, but like yes, things are just mended all the way around, brothers and sisters, and you know, yeah, I still have family that struggle in those areas, and like I said, there's just from experience, there's nothing that you can say or do to make anybody change their life. It has to be that one personal decision. I wish there was, or I would be going touching people and changing them right there.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I mean, but also, Samantha and David, you wouldn't be the people that you are today without having gone through that, you know,
Right.
and
Exactly, I wouldn't change a thing. It's
Nope.
not that sounds crazy, but I would not change a thing. I really
wouldn't either.
wouldn't, because it has made me who I am today. And
absolutely.
I am very
Um,
strong. I'm very strong. And I
Yep.
finally had reached a point in my life. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror as a woman until the age of 30.
Yep.
I had been
Mm.
sober for 4 years at that point. But I finally made it to a point where I made my mom proud.
Yeah, I know exactly what she's saying. I was the same way. My mom probably even remembers times of me just going out and talking to her and like, do you actually see like a
Man.
man here? Because I don't feel like a man. And I was a
Really?
boy. I was a boy. I was a lost, drug addicted boy stuck in a man's body. And that's what it felt like looking in the mirror. Like it just didn't. But now
Just
it's
didn't feel
so
like you measured up to a man, to
right,
being a
Yep.
man.
right,
Mhm,
right.
mhm.
And for the first time in these past 4 or 5 years, I can look at myself and see you know, a man that takes care of responsibility and loves Jesus, and it's the best feeling in the world. It really is. There's no high, there's nothing out there that can beat the feeling of the Holy Spirit. And
Mm.
that's a guarantee promise right there.
Yep.
Wow. And that's coming
Yes.
from someone who has experienced both.
Yes.
Yes.
Both feelings.
Yep.
And Samantha, so your family you're good. You have a good relationship with your mom, supportive, forgiveness, all that good stuff.
Yes, ma'am. By God's grace, luckily all that was able to happen before anything, bad happened or anything like that. So that was one thing that during the process of trying to mentally get myself right and with the Lord. That was one of my goals that I set for myself because that was something my mom had consistently told me. Set a goal. Set a goal. And my goal was to make that woman proud because she did not fail me. I know she felt like she failed me as a parent. She did not.
Thank you for sharing that, because I'm telling you, I'm sure there are a lot of parents, including myself, when our son was at his rock bottom before he was clean and sober, clean. There are many, many times that I know that Mike and I both have, or Pooch and I have both chatted after he passed and was found dead. That what could we have done? Is there something we could have done different? The woulda, shoulda, couldas. Even though we were doing the best that we could, praying for him, helping him, bringing him into our home, and then, needles and stuff, spoons were found. And it was like, he can't be here. And then he would go to a grandparent's house and burn that bridge. And then, and as a parent, you do feel like a failure. You do. But the other thing is, like what Pooch says, you will love them to death when you think you're helping, enabling them. And Tracy says, Pooch, if you don't catch it very early, there's not a lot you can do but pray, and they hide it so well, it's hard to catch early. Pooch says to Tracy, I had to give my son to God when I was dealing with my addict son. I too have walked in your shoes.
So sorry for that.
Tracy says, it's a hard journey. My heart breaks for anyone who lost the ones they love. And one day at a time, Farmstead says, families, don't give up on praying for your loved ones. This is the greatest thing that we can do for them. We sometimes feel like we are not doing enough, but prayer is the most powerful way that we can help.
Absolutely right, man. You hit the nail on the head with that right there.
Karen Bruss says, thank you, David and Sammy, for sharing your life. And hopefully someone will see this and want to change their path. So please, again, if you just tuned in, you would really be helping David and Samantha. Because again, for the three of us, it's not about the numbers. It's not about the likes. It's not about that. Of course, that's great. But the reason why, and they are sharing their story, and the reason why I brought my podcast back to this platform is because there's so many people that need to hear this story. And so if you could share, you would be a big part in helping us do that. So please share this out on your platforms if you could. So where are you guys at now in terms of your lives? Where are you at now? What's going on in your life? What's the good stuff?
You want to talk? I think we are doing excellent. Where we are today compared to what I was or we were 7 years ago, we're millionaires. And I feel like a millionaire. I mean, we may not make the greatest money. We still have to go to work 8 to 5 and all that. But we've got our own home to come to. We've got our own car to go to. We bought a car for Miracle. Miracle has her car. So, I mean, this is just, like I said, we're living a dream.
What was once a dream.
Which was once a dream. Yeah, absolutely. And then about probably 6 to 9 months from now, we're going to be moving to Kentucky. And I'm pretty excited about that. There's 3 or 4 acres of land, and it's right in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. But that's when our YouTube's really we're going to be able to get started and actually have our own little homestead.
He's been so excited that he thinks I'm climbing that mountain. I'm not climbing.
Well, you've already climbed a huge mountain, right? So you don't need another one. But congratulations on your move. I actually saw that announcement on your channel. And again, for those of you that are not subscribed to Goat Daze, please go and subscribe. David and Samantha have some great content. And gosh, we're super excited to follow you guys on your journey and your move. Pooch says we lost Ben at 25 years of age, 5 years ago next month on the 28th. He battled addiction. And thank God he was clean and sober at the time of his death. He was.
Amen.
Amen. Let's see here. Ariel, who I believe I've seen on your channel.
Ariel.
Ariel.
He had to spell it out for me.
That's right. I remember seeing that on your live. Says, pray Psalm 91 protection over your life and your family daily. This is a promise of God that you can trust.
Yes,
Yep.
that's the same verse that he had us go around our yard and do that. And we did. As soon as we got off that live, we got our Bible out and we read that prayer all the way around the
Bad
house.
storms were coming in.
Yeah,
So we
sure
got
did.
anointed oil and walked around.
Y'all are so awesome. Oh my gosh. So let me ask you this. This is the last question that I will ask each of you to answer individually. But before I say do that, Simply Jen says, God has delivered y'all and your testimony would bless so many people. I know that. I don't just think that, I know that. But so everyone, and Tracy says to please share. Everyone, please share. There's someone out there that really needs to hear this, please. So the final question to each of you to answer individually, because of all of this, because of your car wreck, your addiction, the accidental death of your infant daughter, David, your losing your grandfather to suicide, your homelessness, your coming clean, and to be a couple that was addicted and to be a couple that remains clean is a huge miracle. There's always usually someone that's going to relapse and pull the other one down. So, man, God has His hands upon you guys, and it's very evident. And so that's a miracle in of itself. But because of everything, because you have a home, because you bought a car, because you were able to buy your daughter a car, because now you're up and moving. Individually, I'm going to ask you this question. Samantha, who is Samantha today? Who are you? Who are you today?
I feel like I'm a very strong-minded, kind of stubborn in some ways, and I'm independent. I have always, even during my addiction days, I always remember feeling I want to be self-sufficient. Like I know if something were to happen to him today, if he passed, I'm still going to be okay financially. I'm just going to miss him physically. But as myself, though, I can't see myself without him.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I've been with him since I was 22 and I'm 33 now. So my entire adult life, I don't know anything other than being David's wife.
Hmm.
But I know that I'm a stubborn, independent woman on top of it.
Awesome. All right, to you, David. Who are you after all of this? What kind of man are you? Who
I
is
am
David?
absolutely, completely opposite of what I was. 100%. Like I said before, I used to worry so much about what someone thought about me, or if this person liked me, or this, or if this has happened, stressed like crazy. And he has completely changed my heart and mind in ways that you wouldn't be able to imagine. Like things don't bother me. Like, and there will be things that happen that should be devastating to somebody, but him giving me that full protection, that full peace of his blood, I know that no matter what, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens. Everything's going to be okay. If it came down to it, I can say for sure, if it came to a point in this world where we had to be killed for the name of Jesus, I would be first in line. Like, that's how much I love Christ, and that's how much I know, no doubt about it, that he's the real deal. He will change your life. It is just 100% up to you. Turn your heart towards God, and he'll transform your mind. I mean, and I mean truly put your heart reading scripture every day, praying every day, all day long. I talk to Jesus all day. If it's just random, whatever it is, I'm always talking to him. But yes, if you give your heart over and fully dive in to who Jesus is, even if you don't know him, go learn him. He's going to he's going to transform you. It says the renewing of your mind. It's exactly what he does. And you're never going to get to the high point, or that's as far as you can go. you're going to be 80 years old and you're still going to be learning new things in your mind. But, it's just, that's the way it is. I don't know. I'm just a totally different person than I've ever been. And it's the best feeling in the world. Especially, I don't really have to worry about nothing. I mean, I get maybe upset if something happens or whatever, but I know for a fact, without a shadow of doubt, everything's going to be okay in the end.
It will
Tomorrow's
be.
still going to come.
That's right.
It's going to be
And if
okay.
it doesn't, it will come. You'll be living in your final destination in eternity.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
it'll come. But so I'm going to tell you what I see. I see two incredible people. I see a God-fearing woman and I see a God-fearing man. I see a man who has taken the reins and is leading his wife and his family down the path that God has laid out before them. I see
Thank
two
you.
people who, with this podcast, with sharing your message on your channel, two people that are planting seeds, two people who will never know whose lives they've changed unless those people that God has changed their lives through you,
Yeah.
and sharing your story reaches out to you. You never know.
And
But
I
I
hope
see
so. I hope so. That is my biggest prayer with all of
we are
this.
to do.
I just want to give somebody hope because I've been in their
and
shoes and I know that it's possible. Just please listen to me. It is possible. If you're listening to this and you're that bad off, there, I know it feels like there's no hope and everything's completely like there's just nothing you can do. Yes,
Mhm,
yes,
mhm.
he will change you, but you have to do your part. You can't just sit there and he's going to change you.
Right.
You can't go off and do something that's a sin and be like, oh, it's okay. I believe in Jesus. It'll be all right. That's not how it works. You have to give him your full heart. You understand what I'm saying? You can't.
I
I don't know.
love that.
Yeah,
That
he has
is
to have your full heart. He
yes.
has to have your full heart because if you think that because there's a lot of false messaging going around these days, and these preachers that are talking, well, I believe Jesus died and resurrected, came back from dead. I'm good because I believe it, and that's not the case. I think that those, and I'm not being mean, but people that think that way are going to be the ones that go to heaven and are confident they're going to heaven, and Jesus is going to say, I never knew you. I
Mm.
never knew you. You know,
Mhm.
even the ones that say, I cast demons out in your name. Well, I'm sorry, I never knew you.
Mhm.
And that's because you have, whenever I do, like, I vape my cigarette, it gives me conviction every single day. I have so much conviction of it. But that's my last thing to let go. But you see what I'm saying?
Mhm. Absolutely.
When you give him your whole heart, you're going to be convicted. I mean, just with this, that's how you know you've got him, you've given your whole heart is when you feel that feeling of conviction, even over the smallest thing.
Absolutely. And you're so right when you say that, you can turn your life over to God, but you have to do the work. I mean, he can't do it for you. You have
Yep.
to. It'd be like in like any relationship. It's like in any relationship. I could say, Mike, I love you so much. And I believe in you and I hope this relationship works, but then to never talk to him or work at it, it's never going to work, so you
Right.
have to do your part. You have to do the work. It's not going to fall
Well,
in
yeah,
your
Jesus
lap.
even said it, that there's a path that's narrow and hard to walk, and there's one that's wide and easy to go. It's your choice to do it. And
Absolutely.
it's a
Absolutely.
simple concept. It's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy because you've got to follow Christ and take it seriously, but it's worth it. That's for
It
sure.
is.
And it'll
It
change
is.
your life. It'll change whoever, if you got kids, nieces, nephews, people are going to see that. It's like a ripple effect in water. When you hit that water, it's just going to start rippling out. People are like, man, what happened to this guy? And there you go. You open the door for them to give their heart to Christ.
That's right. That's
Yep.
right. And the ripple effect can be good and it can be bad. So
Yeah.
people are watching and following, and we think that our decisions only affect us, but that's just not the case. So
Yeah.
I thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing your
Yes, thank
story.
you.
Tish.
Such
Thank
an
you so
important
much.
message. And again, I pray, and I will join you in prayer in that somebody somewhere that's watching this or listening to it on podcast will know that God loves them and
Yes.
it's not too late. So
Right.
thank you guys so much. Thank you for everybody that came in.
You all.
I
Thank
love
you
you
so
all
much.
so much. We all appreciate your support and the time that you spent with us. And man, share this out. Simply Jan says, I love y'all so much.
Love
And
you.
Love
Jan.
you.
I love all
we
of
love you guys. Thank you again. Everyone else have a great night. Don't forget to go check out Goat Days channel. That is Samantha and David's channel, and show them some support and some love. And thank you, Tracy, for being here. And man, you've got an awesome son and an amazing daughter-in-law. So you guys have a good night. I will see you guys
too.
on Monday.
Okay. Thank you
Thanks.
so
Good
much for the
night.
opportunity, Tish. We appreciate it
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My
Love
pleasure.
ya.
You guys have a good night. I love y'all.
You too. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.